GST, Goods and Services Tax. Important points to remember for departmental exam, PSC exams, UPSC exams, UGC NET exam, SET, in-service exams, degree PG level exams and various other exams. GST returns. In this chapter, we discuss about GST returns. The meaning of GST returns. It is a statement of information furnished by the taxpayer to tax administrators at regular intervals. Filing of GST returns constitute the most important compliance procedure which enables the government tax administrator to estimate the tax collection for a particular period and determine the correctness and completeness of the tax compliance of the taxpayers. Then next, all the returns are to be filed online. Most important, all the returns are to be filed online. Then modes of filing returns. There are mainly three modes of filing returns. One, GSTN portal. Through GSTN portal, www.gst.gov.in. Then there is offline utilities provided by GSTN. Then third, GST Suvidha Providers, GSPS. GST Suvidha Providers, GSPS. These three are the modes of filing return. Then next, furnishing details of outward supplies. Furnishing details of outward supplies. Section 37, Rule 59. Who is required to furnish the details of outward supplies? To be filed by all registered persons including casual registered person. Then there is exemptions in filing GST return. Return of outward supply of goods and services. Exemptions. Input service distributor ISD. Person collecting tax at source. Person deducting tax at source. Composition taxpayer. Non-resident taxable persons, and suppliers of OIDAR services located in non-taxable territory providing services to non-taxable online recipient. Then next, what is the form for submission of details of outward supplies? That is the form for filing return of outward supply. That is GSTR1. GSTR1 can be furnished electronically on portal or through a facilitation center. Then, due date of submission of form GSTR1. Due date for submission of GSTR1. Then for registered persons opting for QRMP scheme, due date is 13th day of the month succeeding such quarter. And for others, 11th day of the month succeeding said month. Invoice furnishing facility IFF for taxpayers opting for QRMP scheme. Invoice furnishing facility IFF for taxpayers opting for QRMP scheme. IFF it's an optional facility. IFF provides to quarterly taxpayers who are in QRMP scheme, IFF to file their details of outward supplies in first 2 months of the quarter, IFF between the first day of the succeeding month till the 13th day of the succeeding month. I repeat, between the first day of the succeeding month till the 13th day of the succeeding month, IFF up to a cumulative value of rupees 50 lakh in each of the first 2 months of the quarter, and to pass on the credit to their recipient. Then next, what are the cases where a registered person is debarred from furnishing details of outward supplies in GSTR1 IFF. Registered person not allowed to furnish GSTR1. Return not furnished in form GSTR 3B for the preceding month. Then registered person not allowed to furnish GSTR 1 IFF. Person opting for QRMP scheme has not furnished GSTR 3B for preceding tax period. Person to whom intimation has been issued under Rule 88C unless the deposits the amount in intimation or furnishes a reply explaining reasons for unpaid amount. Then next, what kind of details of outward supplies are required to be furnished in GSTR 1 and IFF? Details to be furnished through IFF. Outward taxable supplies, B2B supplies. Then these are two interstate supplies and intrastate supplies. B2B supplies are two categories, interstate supplies and intrastate supplies. Then both of the cases, invoice-wise details of all supplies to be uploaded. Debit, credit notes issued during the month for such invoices issued previously to be uploaded. Then next, details to be furnished in GSTR 1. Outward taxable supplies. GSTR 1 outward taxable supplies. B2B, there are two parts, B2B supplies and B2C supplies. In the case of B2B supplies, there is interstate supplies and intrastate supplies. For both, invoice-wise details of all supplies to be uploaded. Then in the case of B2C supplies, there are two categories, interstate supplies and intrastate supplies. In the case of interstate supplies, invoices greater than rupees 2,50,000, invoice-wise details to be uploaded. In the case of interstate supplies, invoices less than or equal to 2,50,000, state-wise, rate-wise consolidated details to be uploaded. Then in the case of B2C supplies, intrastate supplies, B2C supplies, intrastate supplies, rate-wise consolidated details of all invoices to be uploaded. Then next, rectification of errors in GSTR 1 file for previous periods. Particulars furnished in GSTR 1 of prior periods can be rectified by way of amendment tables given in GSTR 1 of subsequent periods. Maximum time limit within which such amendments are permissible is earlier of the following dates. 1. 30th day of 30th day of November following the end of the financial year to which such details pertain or date of filing of the relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. Maximum time limit within which such amendments are permissible is earlier of the following dates. These 2 days, whichever is earlier. Then next, filing of nil GSTR 1. Nil GSTR 1. Filing of GSTR 1 is mandatory for all normal and casual taxpayers, even if there is no business activity in any particular tax period. Then next, furnishing details of inward supplies. Section 38, Rule 60. It is auto-generated statement. There are two elements, two categories to this auto-generated statement. 1. Details of inward supplies in respect of which ITC may be available to the recipient A. The next, second, details of supplies in respect of which such ITC cannot be availed, whether wholly or partly, by the recipient on account of the details of the said supplies being furnished by a registered person. The second category is again divided as, that is the causes, who is a new registrant. I repeat, details of supplies in respect of which such ITC can be availed, whether wholly or partly by the recipient on account of the details of the said supplies being furnished by a registered person. For this, the situations are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 situations. These are: who is a new registrant, specified period from taking registration will be prescribed for this purpose; who has availed ITC of an amount that exceeds the credit that can be availed by him as per GSTR 2B during prescribed period and by prescribed limit; who has defaulted in payment of tax for a prescribed period; whose output tax payable as per GSTR 1 IFF exceeds the output tax paid in GSTR 3B for a particular tax period by prescribed limit; who has defaulted in discharging his tax liability in accordance with the provisions of section 49 subsection 12 read with rule 86B, that is, who has discharged more tax liability from electronic credit ledger than prescribed under rule 86B, and other specified classes of persons. Then next, form and manner of ascertaining details of inward supplies, GSTR 2A and GSTR 2B. GSTR 2A and the features of GSTR 2A. GSTR 2A and the features of GSTR 2A. It is a system-generated read-only statement of inward supplies. It is updated on real-time basis. GSTR 2A reflects details of invoices furnished by a non-resident taxable person in Form GSTR 5. It reflects details of invoices furnished by input service distributor in Form GSTR 6. GSTR 2A reflects details of TDS by deductor furnished in Form GSTR 7. It reflects details of TCS by an e-commerce operator furnished in Form GSTR 8. Then next, GSTR 2B. GSTR 2B and GSTR features of GSTR 2B. It is an auto-generated statement containing the details of eligible ITC. It is available once a month. GSTR 2B is a static statement. It reflects details of outward supplies furnished by the suppliers in Form GSTR 1, 5, 6 between the cut-off dates. The details of GSTR 2B, that is, details of outward supplies furnished by the supplier who, I repeat, details of outward supplies furnished by the supplier who has opted for QRMP scheme in Form GSTR 1 or using the IFF between the cut-off dates. It reflects details of IGST paid on the import of goods brought in the DTA form, Special Economic Unit or Developer. Then next, furnishing of returns under Section 39. Furnishing of returns under Section 39. Returns forms under Section 39. GSTR 3B, GSTR 4, GSTR 5 and GSTR 7. In the case of GSTR 3B, it is for all registered persons. GSTR 4 is for composition taxpayers. GSTR 5 is for non-resident taxable persons. GSTR 7 is for tax deducted at source. In the case of GSTR 3B, that is for all registered person, there is exemptions. Exemptions are ISD, composition taxpayers, NRTP, non-resident taxable person, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax tax at source. Supplies of OIDAR services located in non-taxable territory providing services to non-taxable online receipt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 excluding elements. In the case of GSTR 3B. Then next, due dates for furnishing Form GSTR 3B. GSTR 3B can be filed monthly or quarterly, and due date for filing are as follows. For monthly GSTR 3B, on or before 20th of the month succeeding the month for which return is furnished. In the case of quarterly GSTR 3B, on or before 22nd and 24th of the month, depending upon state, succeeding the quarter for which return is furnished in case of a taxpayer opting for QRMP scheme. Then next, QRMP scheme. It is an optional return filing scheme, quarterly return and monthly payment. Eligibility in the case of QRMP scheme. Taxpayers having aggregate turnover of up to rupees 5 crore in the preceding financial year. Then condition to be fulfilled for become eligible in the case of QRMP scheme. Taxpayer must have furnished the last return as due on the date of exercising such option. Manner of exercising option in the case of QRMP scheme. Taxpayers can opt in for any quarter from first day of second month of preceding quarter to the last day of the first month of the quarter for which the option is being exercised. I repeat, taxpayers can opt in for any quarter from first day of second month of preceding quarter to the last day of the first month of the quarter for which the option is being exercised. Then validity of option once exercised in the case of QRMP scheme. Taxpayers are not required to exercise their option every quarter. Where such option has been exercised once, they shall continue to furnish the return as per the selected option for future tax periods unless they revise the said option. Then opting of QRMP scheme is GSTIN wise. Opting for QRMP scheme is GSTIN wise. A person may avail QRMP scheme option for some GSTINs and not for other GSTINs. Then opting out of QRMP scheme. Taxpayers opting out of the QRMP scheme is one case. Aggregate turnover has exceeded rupees 5 crore in the financial year and availability of facility of opting out of QRMP scheme for a quarter available from I repeat, opting of QRMP scheme is opting and opting out of QRMP scheme. Opting of QRMP scheme is GSTIN wise. A person may avail QRMP scheme option for some GSTINs and not for other GSTINs. Then opting out of QRMP scheme. Taxpayers opting out of the QRMP scheme is aggregate turnover has exceeded rupees 5 crore in the financial year. Then availability of facility of opting out of QRMP scheme for a quarter available from first day of second month of preceding quarter to the last day of the first month of the quarter. Then nil GSTR 3B. Filing of GSTR 3B is mandatory for all normal and casual taxpayers, even if there is no business activity in any particular tax period. That is, nil GSTR 3B filing is compulsory, mandatory. Then next, Form GSTR form and GST CMP 08 for composition dealers. A composition supplier is required to file the return GSTR 4 annually and is required to pay the tax quarterly in Form GST CMP 08. GSTR 4 annual return. Details to be furnished: invoice wise inward supplies and consolidated outward supplies. Frequency yearly. Due date for filing GSTR 4 by 30th day of 30 by 30th day of April following the end of such financial year. Then GST CMP 08 for quarterly payment of tax. Details to be furnished. Details of payment of self-assessed tax. Frequency quarterly. Due date for filing GST CMP 08 by 18th day of 1/8 by 18th day of month succeeding such quarter. Then importance points. In the inward supplies of a composition supplier received from registered persons filing GSTR 1 will be auto-populated in form GSTR 4A for viewing. Next point, filing of nil GST CMP 08 is mandatory for all taxpayers who have opted to pay tax under composition scheme if there is no business activity in any tax period. Then next, Form GSTR 5 for non-resident taxable person NRTPs. GSTR 5. GSTR 5 details to be furnished. Details of inward supplies and details of outward supplies. Frequency monthly. Then due date for filing GSTR 5. 1. Within 13 days, 3 days after the end of the calendar month. Within 13 days after the end of the calendar month, or within 7 days after the last date of validity period of the registration, whichever is earlier. A non-resident taxable person is not required to file an annual return. Then next, Form GSTR 7 for tax deducted at source, TDS. It came into force on 1/10/2018. 2018. 1/10/2018. GSTR 7 is a return for tax deducted at source whenever taxable goods or services or both are supplied to a central, state, government's department, establishment or local authority or governmental agencies. Recipient is required to deduct tax at source and total value of supply exceeds rupees 2,50,000. Then GSTR 7A, form for issue of TDS certificate by deductor to the deductee, that is form GSTR 7A. GSTR 7, filing of GSTR 7, form is GSTR 7A. GSTR 7 for TDS, frequency monthly. Due date for filing GSTR 7 on or before 10th of the month succeeding the calendar month. Then next, due date for payment of tax. Due date for payment of tax for the person required to file. Monthly GSTR 3B, GSTR 5 and GSTR 7. First case, monthly GSTR 3B, GSTR 5 and GSTR 7. Last date of filing returns. Then GSTR 4, tax for a quarter is to be paid by 18th, 1/8 of the month succeeding such quarter. Then payment of tax under QRMP scheme. Tax due in each of the first 2 months for the quarter to be paid by depositing in pre-filled form GST PMT 06. Payment to be made by 25th of the succeeding month. Then next, options for making monthly payment of tax under QRMP scheme. There are 2 methods mainly, fixed sum method and self-assessment method. In the case of fixed sum method, pay tax due in each of the first 2 months of the quarter, deposit in PMT 06 by 25th day of the month succeeding such month. Fixed sum method, 35% of the tax paid in cash in the return for the preceding quarter where the return was furnished quarterly, and tax liability paid in cash in the return for the last month of the immediately preceding quarter where the return was furnished monthly. Then monthly tax payment through this method would not be available to. That is, monthly tax payment through fixed sum method would not be available to those registered persons who have not furnished the return for a complete tax period preceding such month. Then method 2, self-assessment method. In the case of self-assessment method, taxpayers can pay tax by considering tax liability on inward and outward supplies and ITC available in the form GST PMT 06. Then applicability of interest for fixed sum method taxpayers, where auto calculated fixed sum amount for first 2 months of quarter is paid by due date. No interest would be applicable even if the liability of the said month was found higher, if GSTR 3B of the quarter is filed by the due date by discharging the entire liability. Then second case, where taxpayer makes monthly payment beyond due date. In this case, interest is payable at the applicable rate from due date for furnishing GST PMT 06 till date of making payment. Then next case, where form GSTR 3B is furnished beyond due date. In this case, interest payable as per provision of section 50 of the CGST Act 2017 for the tax liability net of ITC. Then next, for self-assessment method taxpayers. For in this case, interest payable as per provision of section 50 of the CGST Act for tax or any part thereof net of ITC which remains unpaid paid beyond the due date for the first 2 months of the quarter. These are the cases of self-assessment method taxpayers. Then rectification of errors and rectification of errors, omissions, revision of return, rectification in subsequent return, in this case, maximum time limit for rectification 30th day of November of next financial year or actual date of filing annual return whichever is earlier. Rectification in subsequent return. Maximum time limit for rectification 30th day of November of next financial year or actual date of filing annual return whichever is earlier. Rectification on account of scrutiny, audit, inspection or enforcement activities. Then next, other returns and statements. First return GSTR 10. That is for registered person to declare outward supplies in the period between the date on which he became liable to registration till the date on which registration has been granted after grant of registration. Then GSTR 8, that is statement for tax collection at source. Statement for TCS GSTR 8. It is monthly statement for e-commerce operator depicting supplies affecting through it, filed by e-commerce operator. Due date is 10th of the next month. Then next, final return GSTR 10. Taxable person whose registration has been surrendered or cancelled within 3 months of the date of the cancellation or date of order of cancellation, whichever is later. Then next, annual return and annual statement. Annual return furnished by all registered person. excluding NRTPs, ISD, casual taxable person, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source. Then annual return prescribed form GSTR 9 for registered persons, GSTR 9A for composition taxpayers, GSTR 9B for EZO. Then next, annual self-certified reconciliation statement. Annual self-certified reconciliation statement. Annual self-certified reconciliation statement. For all registered persons are required to furnish the statement along with annual return if their aggregate turnover during a financial year exceeds rupees 5 crore. Annual self-certified reconciliation statement are required to furnish the statement. Annual self-certified reconciliation statement should be filed by all registered persons who are required to furnish the statement along with the annual return if their aggregate turnover during a financial year exceeds rupees 5 crore. Here the excluding elements are NRTPs, ISD, casual taxable person, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source. For annual self-certified reconciliation statement, prescribed form is GSTR 9C. Then next, GSTR 11. Details of inward supplies of persons having UIN. GSTR 11 is details of inward supplies of persons having UIN. GSTR 11. Persons who have been issued a unique identity number UIN. Details of inward supplies of persons having UIN. Thank you.